Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unleashed with Scarlett Johnson, presented by Moms for Liberty. Today, we are taking a deep dive into what just happened in Virginia, a state that's been a bellwether for a long time. We saw the results this last week. They weren't great. They weren't great for the GOP. Conservatives that had some hope felt very disappointed because I think even though that we knew that the race for governor was a long shot, there was hope, but we thought at the very least Lee Jones, the AG, would lose, and he won, and that was probably my biggest surprise. But there were also a loss of some statewide races, some legislative seats, and local contests. There was a big flip from 2-seat majority Democrats to a pretty strong majority of Democrats in the House of Delegates. Joining me today are two powerhouse voices who live and breathe Virginia politics. They live in Virginia, and they are outspoken in their, in support for what we value, parental rights and protection of children. And so I wanted them to come and do the talking today and tell us their opinions about what happened in Virginia and what we should read into and what we might be reading into too broadly. So joining me are my friends Lydia Schaffer, who is with Turning Point. She's a Turning Point ambassador, and she has an amazing Instagram following. She's otherwise known as Conservative Barbie 2.0. And my friend Terry Schilling, who is the president of American Principles Project, an amazing organization who is doing so much for us. They're on the front lines. I met Terry a few years ago, and I see him all the time. He's like, "You're always doing something." When he's not having children, he is not having children, but they are not raising their wonderful, amazing family. He is out there fighting for other people's children. So thank you both for coming on. Terry, I'll start with you because I talked to you right before the election results came in. You weren't too optimistic, and I thought, oh, he's on to something here. So why don't you tell us what you saw happening in Virginia and your thoughts?
Well, thanks so much, Scarlett. And I see you just as many places, and so that means that we're both just on the job all the time. Look, I think what happened in Virginia is both simple and complex. The simple is that as a historical data point, had Winsome Sears won in Virginia, she would have been the second candidate in over 50 years to have won the election after her party had taken the White House. It is very odd to see the same party take the governor's mansion in Virginia after they had just taken the White House in D.C. These races in both New Jersey and Virginia are typically pushbacks to the previous party that won the last presidential election. So the history was against us. But secondarily, I think where it gets complex is that Winsome ran a very strong campaign on parental rights, on protecting our children, on attacking Democrats for their extremism, specifically on the transgender issue. However, I think she put too many eggs in just one basket. Right. If you look at the broader message, there wasn't a lot to work with. She wants to get rid of the car tax. I would love to get rid of the car tax here in Virginia. A lot of people don't know. I know you have a national show, but in Virginia, we have to pay a 5% tax on the value of our car every year. It's terrible. People with minivans, which are very expensive these days, we get hurt really badly with it. But it's how our government's funded at the local level. So there's just a lot of problems there. But I think at the most basic level, we need to do a better job of not distancing ourselves from President Trump and the Make America Great Again agenda. If you look at where Winsome was hurt the most, it was with the low propensity Trump voters, the rural part of the state. Almost every part of the state went more blue. You see those maps with the arrows going, and it's almost all blue all across the state. So we need to do a better job of talking about the economic relief that we're going to provide to working families. We need to do a better job of talking about how we're going to get these Gen Zers and millennials back into the economy. And I think this was bad luck, but also we need to do a better job going into the midterms if we're going to avoid losses like this.
I lived in Virginia for 6 years, and it was the first time I had ever had to pay a car tax. It is it is ridiculous. So that tax. So, Lydia, your thoughts about the election? I know that you were commenting on it a lot on your Instagram post. You are a mom who lives near the Virginia Beach area. Your dad, it was born in Virginia. You've got deep roots there. What are your thoughts about the results?
Well, I'll have to tell you, I mean, I wasn't shocked that Spanberger won. I was shocked that Jay Jones won. I was absolutely shocked about that. But I agree with Terry that we need to align more with President Trump. I think that we need to stand strong with him. And I also think that Virginia's loss wasn't because of bad candidates or bad values. I mean, our candidates ran really strong races. I think what happened is simply that the state has changed faster than the Republican Party has kept up. Modern voters live online, demographics are shifting, families are looking for leaders who meet them right where they are. And this isn't about blame, it's about opportunity. We have the right message. We just need to modernize how we deliver it so that we can reach parents, families, and new communities all across Virginia.
So you would say that what was the funding discrepancy between, let's say, just the top candidates? The governor's race. I mean, it was pretty large, wasn't it?
It was. And I feel like we in Virginia could possibly just modernize the way that we are reaching people. I think that basically I feel like we're kind of still living in 2004. I feel like if we could maybe bring it back to, just getting with the times, even bringing our messaging more online, meet people where they are ultimately.
Is that your impression, Terry, too? Were there ad buys online? Were they utilizing social media? Were they trying to find? I know at the end we saw a huge turning point come in. We had Scott Presler. Was that just too late? Should that effort have started earlier?
No, look, the Scott Presler and the Turning Point crew, they were pretty on top of this race. They had been out on the knocking doors for quite some time. Like, they didn't get into this late. I think they were doing doors and stuff as early as July, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong about that.
That's early.
But I really do think that, okay, just basic, conversation. What was Abigail Spanberger running to do? Well, she was running to get the government back opened up. She was running against the insane Trump agenda. She was running to stop Trump and all of his tyrannical, oppressive regime that he was pushing on Virginians and hurting us every single day. Why vote for Winsome? Well, she's going to get boys out of our girls' sports. That's great. She's going to get boys out of the girls' locker rooms and showers. That's great. But what else beyond that, right? And I think we have to remember that the electorate is complex and sometimes complicated even, but there are different voters for different things. Some voters care about pro-life, some voters care about the cost of living, some voters care about housing, some voters care about traffic, right? There are all different things that you need to be speaking to voters on the campaign trail. And I actually think that is one thing that President Trump did fantastically in 2024. He didn't just have, an economic message for working class people. He didn't just have a culture war agenda for the families like us. He had an agenda for the Make America Healthy Again, right? I think that Make America Healthy Again agenda was incredibly popular and incredibly important to his victory, and obviously important for our country and getting us healthy again. But you have to have a diverse message that speaks to several different parts of your electorate if you're going to win. You can't, like I said earlier, you can't just put all your eggs in one basket. It's not going to be enough. And by the way, I basically pioneered the whole idea of doing campaign ads on women's sports at APP. We did the ads in 2019. I'm a huge believer in them, but they work on the margin, right? They move 3 to 5 points of the electorate. They don't work, they don't shift 8 points. They don't shift 10 points, 12 points. You have to have an economic message that shifts voters to your columns. You have to have a cultural message that shifts voters to your columns. And you have to have a diverse message that brings more independents, more swing voters, and even some Democrats over to your column. Otherwise, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And I think that we have to hear the hard truths. Otherwise, if we don't learn from what happened right in this election, we won't be able to win the next one in 2026. So we have to be real. We can't just blow it off. We can't just think like it's not just about money. Yeah, it would be great if there was more money, but it's going to be a little bit more complicated than that. I do think that it's an interesting, because usually the GOP has leaned too heavily into an economic message, and now we're saying that maybe they didn't focus on it enough. But maybe it's also more than that. Instead of I'm going to cut your taxes, like really making a compelling story, telling a story like Trump did, talking to people where they're at and making them feel like you hear them. And I think that it's a unique thing. Trump is just such a unique phenomenon. And I worry when he's not on the ticket, what happens if we don't start to really shift the way that we do politics as far as conservatives.
Could I speak to that real quick, Scarlett? Because one thing that was just glaring to me on election night, Winsome had a history. Look, I love her. We endorse her. We spent over $1 million to support her. I wanted her to win. But one thing that bothered me was that Winsome had previously attacked Trump, said bad things about him. She endorsed DeSantis. If you look at the 2024 election results, President Trump got over 2 million votes in Virginia. Right? Winsome came up at, I think, just a little bit over 1.3. That was a 700,000 vote gap that she could have dug into to get turnout to where she needed it to, but she could only do that by tapping into the voters that voted for President Trump. And by the way, Virginia is a Democrat state. I mean, when you're voting by 5 points for Kamala Harris, that's a pretty Democrat state. She was basically brain dead. And they had voted for Joe Biden in 2020 by over 10 points. This is a solid Democrat state, but there were still enough Trump voters out there. If you just turned them out and had a compelling message, she could have won. But again, you need the money for that.
Lydia, do you think that the parents and the grandparents and community members that agreed with Winsome, hey, we don't want boys in women's sports, do you think they turned out? Because I don't think that they turned out enough. Do you think that
I think that's
they just didn't turn out?
Yeah, I think that's my something clearly went wrong here. And so I've basically just been trying to figure out specifically what that was. And I think you might have hit the nail on the head. Why didn't they show up? Why didn't people show up? I know many who did, but the numbers don't lie. I mean, so many did not. And that's the frustrating part. So I think if we can really get to the root of what went wrong, and as we move forward as a party here in Virginia, we can really identify that and try to focus on it and turn out better for midterms.
Glenn Youngkin, by the way, got 1.6 million votes. That's 300,000 more than Winsome. I'm just going to pull up the election results because I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. In the chat, I'll bring it up if you can't. I was actually looking for some. I love looking at the results. I had looked at them before. I mean, you've got that kind of swing, the House of Delegates, and every local race too. It was just, my gosh, it was a. You know how they say it's a murder. It's a murder. It was pretty decisive. And I mean, you cannot forget, as a political scientist, and Terry, you know this, we cannot forget that typically when in these kinds of elections and in Virginia, it's rare that the party in power, if the party in power is, Republicans, it's rare that a year later, everyone is going to go ahead and go vote Republican again. Usually these things kind of flip based on the party in power. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility that that just happens, that people think I'm upset about the tariff or I'm upset about this or that. I'm not going to vote. So that I'm going to stay home. So there could be that could be a factor. The government was shut down. How many people that work for the federal government live in Virginia, and maybe they're upset about the shutdown and they don't show up. I don't think that accounts for this large of a loss, but it certainly plays a part. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, and if you look, I just pulled this up. So Terry McAuliffe in 2021. Keep in mind, Biden had just won the previous election in 2020. Terry McAuliffe got 1,599,000 votes. Glenn Youngkin barely won. But if you look at the Terry McAuliffe's 1.599 million votes, Abigail Spanberger got almost 2 million votes. Right. So the Democrats were depressed turnout in 2021. And they obviously had more energized and vibrant turnout in 2025. And it makes sense because they're under pressure, they're under siege. It's easier, it's a lot. Your job when you're tearing things down and you're the insurgent coming up and attacking is a lot easier than when you're governing. It's just the nature of leadership. It's a lot harder to lead than it is to knock something down.
Do you think people get comfortable with the fact that Trump is in office too? And maybe they just feel comfortable and they think that, we have Trump, we're fine. They don't feel that
Lydia,
urgent.
I think that yes, and if you look at how Trump came out of the gate, right? I talked to my wife a lot about politics, and we actually met on the campaign trail, and she said something very smart to me that really made me think, which was she thinks that voters in Virginia and all across the country saw everything that President Trump was doing on the transgender fight to protect our children and get this stuff out of our schools, and they thought, this is solved. This is over. We don't need to address it. So putting all of your eggs in that basket probably wasn't the right call. You still need to talk about the threats, because Spanberger is going to reverse everything that Glenn Youngkin did. She's going to fight President Trump in everything that he's done to protect our children. However, you need to make that argument, but you can't. A lot of voters don't think it's a problem. It's not like where we were in 2021, where kids were dudes in dresses in the girls' room were sexually assaulting, women in schools and then covering them up in Loudoun County like we saw. So yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that people just didn't have the urgency because they think President Trump has solved a lot of these problems.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, not everyone, but some. I think that they think that Trump can fix it all. And I don't think they realize so much is done at the state level and at the local level. And so I think that could have been part of the issue as well.
So I'm looking at some different results, like showing the results, comparing them with 2024, 2021. And the shifts are pretty clear, especially 2024 to 2025. A lot of the demographics that Trump had won, all those gains were not only, it didn't just even out, there were losses, flips in young men, flips in turnout, where there was 81% turnout, you see 49% turnout. And if you look at New Jersey, though, and you see that it really kind of mirrors Chitterelli, and Chitterelli was very aligned with Trump. So I think you can kind of see that there's overall, I think, the economy. I would say, just from looking at the economy, weighed heavy as people went to vote. Concern that, I mean, the Democrats, first of all, had a lot of money to put in for that messaging, but overall, kind of concern, inflation's high, groceries are high. Will I be able to sell my house? Will I be able to buy a house? How am I going to afford college? These are issues that I know those of us in the grassroots have been kind of beating the drum, like, hey, we've got to address these issues. These are really important. Don't dismiss these. And I think that the results make it clear that these are issues that we must talk about. But how do you balance that with how hard it is for Trump right now? He can't wave a magic wand. What happened over Biden took a long period of time. COVID happened. Turning this around is going to take some time. So I'm just throwing it out there. What do you guys think about?
Well, I think if we see everything going on, Trump is doing the best he can. I mean, he's talking about doing $2,000 stimulus checks to put back into the economy. So, I mean, if you're watching, he's doing everything that he can. And like you said, he can't just wave a magic wand. He really stepped into a lot after COVID and Biden. And I think it's incredible to see what he's done already.
Yeah, I agree with Lydia on this. I think that, if we're being honest and real, President Trump really did inherit not just Biden's mess, but he inherited Obama's mess before that. And if you look at the whole shutdown debacle, it was all over the ACA subsidies. Now, I'm old enough to remember in 2008 when President Obama campaigned on Obamacare. His whole goal was to make health insurance more affordable. It's not affordable. It's gotten much worse. It only is affordable if the government is heavily subsidizing it. It is a failure. It was never meant to succeed. It was meant to actually get us into single payer healthcare. It's meant to balloon the system with mandates for coverage and then also subsidies to where things like this happen and Democrats have more leverage points to control the economy. But look, I think we need to think quickly. I think the Trump administration needs to figure out how they're going to address the unaffordability crisis that Americans are suffering from, especially these next generations, because we haven't even talked about Mamdani and how a communist Islamist won mayor of New York City. And if you go back to 2001 and you told anyone after 9/11 that a communist Muslim was going to be elected mayor of New York, they would have laughed at you. You could have won a 1 million to 1 bet that day if you placed that. But we have to address. Mamdani was speaking about housing unaffordability. That was like all he talked about. We need to figure out how we can get young people into home ownership again because the housing prices are way too high, the mortgage rates are way too high. Kids can't start families, which is the biggest motivator. Like if you look at why people make more money, why they achieve more, it's because they have families that they have to provide for. That's like the biggest motivating factor for anyone. It's very rare where you see two married people or even a single person that are thriving successfully by being single and not having children. Most successful people have at least one or two children. So we need to figure out how to get people, these younger generations, back into the economy and actually participating in it. Otherwise, we're going to get more Mamdanis.
I'm glad you used the term affordability because I'm reading from the NPR, and it's always good to read from other organizations that they don't agree with you. You got to hear what the other side is hearing. And a quote, Spanberger, who served in the CIA before running for Congress in 2018, has cultivated a reputation as a pragmatic centrist. Now, we all know that's not true, but this is the messaging that was put out there by the mainstream media. She's a centrist. I heard that a lot from my friends who are in Virginia. They were so upset because that they would talk to more moderate or independents and they'd think, yeah, she's a centrist. So their messaging kind of got through. And the theme of her campaign was affordability, speaking to Virginians' concerns about the rising costs of homes, utility bills, pharmaceutical drugs, and the economic uncertainty that she blamed on Trump's tariffs and federal layoffs. Now, we can know the facts behind all of these things, but normies, regular people who aren't politicos like us, they feel the uncertainty, they see the high bills, they see the high cost of drugs and pharmaceutical drugs and the high cost of health insurance. I can speak to that, and then you're paying high taxes, and you have all the media and all that say, here's who you blame. It's not true. It is absolutely not true, but that is the perception. And when you look at the polling data in Virginia and in New Jersey and in New York and in other parts of the country, when asked the voters who came out to vote, when they polled them, they said that they felt that the candidate they voted for, which was a Democrat, was more likely to address those issues of affordability. How are they going to address them? Oh, they're going to, through the government, growing the government, putting us further into debt, taxing the so-called rich, which affects all of us, all of those, lies. But that's the perception.
Right. And I feel like, the Spanberger campaign, they really leaned heavily into like you said, the cost of living, healthcare, stability. And she played the part of a centrist ultimately, even though all of us here know that she's not.
They always
Well,
are
and She was asked several times by a local reporter, Nick Minock, about all of the transgenders, the sports, the bathrooms, the locker rooms, all of that. And she ducked and dodged and weaved and never mentioned it at all. I mean, she really did play the part. She's going to vote and she's going to take the actions that the transgender industry is going to love, right? But she did pretend to be a moderate. I do want to say, though, that all of the Democrats talking about how they're going to tax the rich, they're never going to tax the rich. Even if you raised, the marginal tax rates up to 100%, the rich still won't pay taxes because they don't pay income taxes. And this is where it gets complicated, because once you start making these points, you're going to put people to sleep. But the rich pay capital gains taxes. They take out loans on all the stocks that they own, and it's so egregious. The whole system's rigged. And by the way,
And so
Democrats are the party of the rich.
The people that can't do all of those things, they can't hide our money. They can't, like, we're the ones that bear the burden of, if you have a dual income, we're not rich. But when they say tax the rich, they mean middle class, upper middle class. That's the entrepreneurs, the risk takers, the doctors, the people that put everything on the line to start a business, that finally, accumulate something after working so hard, and it's like, oh, you're rich, we're taking it. That's who they're going to tax. The uber wealthy, they vote Democrat. Like, they're not the ones that are going to be punished. I'm sorry.
Scarlett, the top 10 wealthiest congressional districts in America are all represented by Democrats. And it's not just like D+2, D+3. These are D+10, D+15 districts. The rich are firmly in the camp of the Democratic Party. And the Republicans need to figure that out quickly. And they need to realize that their real base, the base that gets them over the finish line in every single election, are working families. And if we're suffering, we're not showing up to the polls. That's just the reality. And I think that the government shutdown, I know there's a lot of government workers that should be shut out and fired. I fully support it. But I have neighbors that voted for Trump that did not show up to vote for Winsome, and because they're demotivated, because they're laid off. They've been laid off for 2 months almost, right? And these types of things really do impact the vote. And they gave those Democrats a lot of extra time to go and knock doors, to make phone calls, while still knowing that they're going to get a paycheck at the end of this.
Yes, you're right. That I have heard that from several friends. It's anecdotal, but I believe it, that there were people that voted for Trump, that they work for the federal government, they're laid off, and they're not motivated to vote. They're not going to go vote for Spanberger, but they're just not going to show up to vote at all. And that shutdown, I've termed it Schumer's shutdown. The Republicans reached across the aisle. They didn't want the shutdown. They avoided it, and it was something that I think that Democrats knew might benefit them through the election, which is why immediately afterwards, suddenly they're in the mood to make a deal, and they're ready to.
Well, the polling started to show that the public was starting to blame more Democrats more and more, and Republicans less and less. That's when they shifted their stance on the shutdown. It's just funny how that works.
And I didn't want to. My advice to the Trump administration was cave in, because maybe it'll help you. I mean, they did the right thing. They could not cave. Like, they could not do it at that time. It's something that happened, and it's just something to acknowledge. Could they have messaged it better? I don't know. I think they were doing their best. This is the question, Terry, based on what you're saying, and Lydia, maybe you could answer this. How do we message better that the real rich, the real wealthy are not the conservatives? They're not Maha. They're not the independents. The real wealthy are on the radical left. How do we change that? Because I am telling you, I have a lot of relatives that live in the city of Milwaukee in Wisconsin, or they live in some other cities in Florida. They're Puerto Rican, and their family values, their religious values, they all align with conservatives. They all align with Republicans, but they still think Republicans are the rich country club crowd. We're the wealthy, and they're voting for the little guy, the Democrat Party. They still have that perception. How do we change that?
I think it takes having the conversations, but it's such a hard conversation to have, especially when we're with our family at Thanksgiving and we're not supposed to talk about politics. It's like, how can we have these conversations? So me personally, I do the only thing I know how to do that feels like makes a difference is make my little videos, and I'll show charts. I'll make my videos online and share them with as many people as I can. And I don't know, I think it's just getting these numbers and these facts in front of as many people as possible. And in today's day and age, I feel like a lot of times that is social media. So for me, it's just putting the facts out there and hoping people share it and talk about it. And it will take having these conversations.
What about you, Terry? What do you think?
Look, I think this is just message discipline and never straying from the line, right? When you're talking about the economy, you're talking about how middle-class families, how working-class families are suffering, what you're going to do to relieve their burdens, right? And if you look at like what's killing and crushing the middle class, well, I think there are at least three things in my mind that hurts me, like that are just painful to me. One, it's the mortgage every month. That is absolute. My family, we moved into this house that we're currently in when we only had 3 children. We now have 7 with an 8th on the way, and I'd love to buy a new house, but I can't because the mortgage rates are more than double what we got this at, and the housing prices have all dramatically increased. So we're kind of stuck here. So I think that if we address the housing crisis, make housing more affordable, that's number one. Number two is education, right? If you look at like good Christian people that are working class, that have children in this country, I don't want to send my kids to the public school. One, I'd like my kids to know how to read. Two, I'd like my kids to know how to do math. The public schools are failing at both of those things. Only a third of kids can read at grade level and do math at grade level. But third, I don't want my kids learning all this crazy anti-scientific stuff. Boys can't have babies. Boys can't become girls. Stop pretending. I don't want my kids developing, having to, sorry, I don't think my kids will ever develop a furry phase, but I don't want them to have to deal with furries in school, right? It's a distraction from the learning environment. We used to kick kids like this out. If you were a distraction from the learning environment, you get kicked out.
Yeah.
But I have to send my kids to private school here, and it's $20,000 a year to send 3 of my kids to one private school. It's $30,000 for high school here a year. Like, let's at least let people, write that off of their taxes. Why do I have to pay to educate everyone else's kids, but then also pay extra to educate my own kids? And then third, I think taxes are too high. I think you should increase the standard deduction to $100,000 if you have children. A married couple with children should have $100,000 standard deduction where you don't have to pay any taxes on your first $100,000. These kids are expensive. The food, the clothing, the shelter, the transportation, all of it. It's crazy, but we need to get people working relief. And I think if we start doing that and never stray from that, never mention corporate tax cuts, never mention job creators. When people hear job creators or entrepreneurs, they hear my boss, and people hate their bosses. There's survey after survey that people show up and they answer the question, do you think your boss would lie to get ahead? Yes. Do you think your boss would throw you under the bus if it meant saving his job? Yes. People don't trust their bosses, and they certainly don't think that they need more economic relief. So focus. And look, I do think that business owners need economic relief, but don't talk about it. Just do it. There are things that you broadcast. There are things that you talk about as your general message to the public. You focus all of that on the economic. And by the way, you got to deliver for the economic, for the middle class on the economy. You have to do it. I'm not saying be deceitful. I'm just saying stop talking about job creators, stop talking about entrepreneurs, because people don't think they need help. Talk about the working families that are getting killed and crushed in this economy, because they're a lot more sympathetic.
The real life stuff.
Yeah, the real life stuff. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and they are going to be moving back to Wisconsin in a year, and they're kind of looking at homes thinking, will we be able to buy a house? Can we afford a mortgage? And she said to me, and she's dire conservative, her husband's in the military. She's like, Mom, why isn't Trump doing more? Like, why isn't doing more to solve this? And I laid it all out for her and told her, like, listen, first of all, he inherited just a mess, and you know that. And what is hard, what I can't convey to you is how much worse it would be right now if Kamala Harris was in charge. How horrible the economy would be. So I can't tell you how much Trump has saved us from. That I can't show you what, there isn't some way, we're not in a Marvel movie. And she's like, okay, yeah, I get it. And so I went through like, this is all that he's doing. These are all the things that he's trying to do. But all of his efforts are time and again thwarted in Congress. The left he'll try to do something, and then there's a court case and they have to fight it and it has to go up to the Supreme Court. And the government is supposed to run slow. That's the nature of the American government. It is slow. But right now, the opposite side, they are trying to just stop it. They are trying to stop it. They want Americans to feel economic pain because for them, it will mean political power. And that is so unfortunate because that is not the way we as conservatives would ever run the government. We would never intentionally harm the American people for political gain, but the other side, they will. So what can we do? Is eliminating the filibuster an answer? Are there things that the administration can do? One last point, we all have to remember Reagan at his point I think 1981, 1982, the economy had not yet taken off. And the poll numbers for him were very low. They were like, oh my gosh, what did we do? Like electing Reagan. And it turned around. It did turn around. And by the time 1984 came around, he was one of the most popular presidents in modern history. So it takes time. Carter wrecked the economy. Biden wrecked the economy. It does take time, but do we have time? Do we have the time, Terry?
I think our margin for error is very small. I don't think we have that much time. I don't think it's over by a long shot. I think Democrats are going to do what they always do. They're gloating right now. And we have some time to turn this all around, all the messaging and the branding going into the midterms. I absolutely do. I think that we can do to Democrats what they did to us in 2022, which is instead of getting a red wave, we got a red trickle. We need to make sure that they don't get a red trickle even, right? We need to make sure that we keep the Senate and we keep the House. And I think we have a great shot at both of that, but it's gonna mean going on offense and going up early, right? I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure the Turning Point crew and Scott Pressler were in Virginia, New Jersey, knocking doors starting in July. I'm gonna go up with our APP's campaign ads starting in February. Right? We're going to brand these Democrats like John Ossoff and Roy Cooper in North Carolina. We're going to brand them early so that by election day, we're not persuading voters. We're closing the deal. We're putting the final nails in the coffin. But I think we need to spend a lot more money. We need to get up a lot earlier. We need to knock a lot more doors and put our shoulder to the wheel, because if we don't, we could absolutely lose our country. And you asked about the filibuster also. I keep going back and forth. I feel schizophrenic on it or bipolar on it. Some days I love it because there's not a doubt in my mind that if a Democrat gets back in the Oval Office and they control the Senate and the House, they're gonna break the filibuster. But like, why not get some major accomplishments? Why not? I love what President Trump made in his argument at the press conference the day after the election on Wednesday last week, where he pointed out that we can secure our elections with voter ID nationwide. The only thing is I think the courts would stop that, right? We're in a mess. I know we can get out of it, but it's not that easy.
No, and I'm glad you're like, these are things that need to go out there, because I've heard some people say, oh, it was just blue states. So what? And others like, hair on fire, this is over. Like, well, it's there's no hope. So I think neither extreme is true. But we have to be realistic and figure out our messaging. Do you think that some of the things that are going to happen in New York, some of the things that will happen in Virginia, that they will take this as a mandate and go too far, and that would be beneficial in 2026?
I could totally see, the rest of the world now watching what's about to happen in New York with Mamdani. I mean, that is going to get crazy. And so maybe that will be a good example of what we could get if people continue to vote blue. But I think we just need to shine light on the fact that conservatives did not show up in Virginia, or they didn't show up. And so I think we need to get to the root of why. And I think Terry made a fantastic point about how we need to talk more about real life issues like the housing crisis and how it relates to people. And I think if we can just master that, I think we could go a lot further.
Yeah, I do think that Elise Stefanik, who is most likely to be the nominee for governor in New York, I think she's going to have a great opportunity to unseat Kathy Hochul because of Zohran Mamdani getting elected. I know that APP is planning to heavily support her. She's fantastic. She's a parent herself. I've personally spoken to her several times about protecting our children. It's the top of her priority list. So I think she's in a good spot. I think the thing that's tough about the Trump coalition, and look, I've said this before, I'm a huge political nerd. A major part of the Trump coalition is the Ross Perot voter, right? And for those that are unaware that are listening, the Ross Perot voter was the third party voter in the 1988 election. I'm sorry, the 1992 election between Bill Clinton and HW. They don't like these free trade agreements. They don't like Republicans because they think that they're all about corporate America, but they don't like Democrats because they're not big government people. They want a third way and they want the middle class prioritized. And so I think that if Republicans are going to make this incoming blue wave a blue trickle, I think what they really need to focus on is getting messages that really speak to those Ross Perot voters. Those really are the MAGA voters, but they also need to deliver, right? I think a major part of what happened this last election is these people are still hurting. And yes, Trump's delivered on a lot of things that we all care about. But at the same time, housing is way too high. Education costs are way too high. Kids can't get good jobs. Kids are still living with their parents in their 30s, right? And so if I'm that Ross Perot voter that voted for Trump in 2024, didn't vote for him in 2020, but voted for him in 2016, I'm thinking, when the hell is my son going to get the hell out of my house and marry someone? Well, they can't do that if they can't afford a house, right? So we've got to actually start delivering on this, or at least come up with compelling policy agenda that voters believe in.
Yes, Democrats are suddenly going to be. We know they run extreme candidates in NYC, okay, because like AOC endorsed. But I already, some of the congressional candidates in Wisconsin, they're talking like Republicans. They look like Republicans. They they are going to try and pass themselves off as I'm just a regular person. I'm just like you, and I care about affordability. But ask them about this is where the culture war issues can come into play. Ask them, do you think that boys should go into a girl's bathroom? And they're going to do the Abigail Spanberger stare of silent. They're not going to say a word. They're not going to say a word. They can't talk on these issues. So we need to find a way to expose them, use some of these culture war issues to expose them. But we can't be so fixated on that we're not addressing those really important bread and butter issues, the wallet issues. People are going to have to feel like the economy's doing better. And that will mean when they go to the grocery store, oh, that price has gone down, or the rates have got, some things have got to happen so that people feel like the economy's better. I have more hope for the future. If they don't feel that way, we're going to have some trouble in 2026. There's just no way around it, because at the end of the day, I think the economy is a driving factor in voting. Now, you may say, well, there are a lot of Republicans that won't vote for Democrats, but they just won't vote, period. Mm-hmm. They just will stay home. And we have switched high propensity voters, right, Terry, are educated. They're in the wealthier areas. They've got multiple degrees. That used to be the old country club GOP voter. That's not our voter anymore. And so we've got the working class, we've got middle class, We've got a new group of voters that came out for Trump that flipped MAGA, but they are the more lower propensity voters. They are the ones that are looking and saying, what are you doing for me? Like, what's going on? Because they feel very much affected by the policy. So they will come out, but they're not going to be as easy to persuade. So I think it's
no, and we have to remember what Trump ultimately represents, right? Which is, I know it's a family show, but he is a middle finger to the establishment. That is ultimately what he has always been in the Republican Party. I mean, everyone was up and outraged when they couldn't stop him in 2016 and 15. They tried everything they could to stop him, and they couldn't. It was because he was coming there to blow up the system. And those were the vote. That's why we get the low propensity voters now. These are the people that are disaffected, they hate the system because the system has killed their families. It's humiliated them, right? Like we talk about tariffs and we talk about manufacturing and how America's had all our factories closed. But you know what it misses? It misses the fact that these men were humiliated. They gave 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years of their life to these companies just to be humiliated and laid off and had their jobs given to foreign workers sent overseas. Imagine being a father, you've been providing for your family, and then in your 60s, you're now unemployed because some Mitt Romney jerk bought your company, sold it out to some Chinese manufacturers, and now what? You're in the unemployment line? You're going to go learn to code, right? They humiliated these people, and those were the people that President Trump appealed to the most. And that's why they're low propensity, because they don't believe in it. They've been hurt by the system. They've been destroyed by the system. They've been humiliated by the system. And so we need voters. We need candidates. We need politicians that can authentically and sincerely speak to what these people have gone through. And I'm very glad that JD Vance is our vice president because he's from these areas, right? He comes from Ohio. He's a hillbilly, right? And he knows what's happened to Middle America, and he can appeal to them.
Yeah, he can speak to what. Was there a Maha message from Winsome Sears? Do you think that maybe there could have been more of an outreach to this new coalition that has joined the Maha movement? Like, was that messaging good? I didn't live in Virginia, so
I didn't necessarily see any type of specific Maha messaging. But I think we have to remember that a lot of people too, like I know I have people in my family that vote based on personality. I know someone I'm thinking of specifically right now who did not vote for her because they just didn't like her personality. And so I just think that is completely unacceptable too. I'm seeing a lot of just, when you look at Trump, people that don't like him because of his personality. And I think that we need candidates, like Terry even said, who can actually deliver on what they say they're going to do.
So, you know what? I don't think that all those who voted for Democrats in Virginia were like like they went to the polls, they drove, they were just so enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. We have to remember the Democrats have a machine. Mm-hmm. They get the vote, they will do everything they can to make sure that ballot ends up in the counted. We don't have a similar mechanism, do we? Like, so there is a world where I can see we could get that person that says, I voted for Trump. I don't really like Winsome Sears. But if we could have a conversation and say, like, you know what, this is what she would do. Who cares if you don't like her? Vote right on the policies. You probably get them, fine, I'll vote for her, sure. But you've got to get them to vote, get that ballot filled out, and get that counted. I think Democrats get a lot of people that are like, who is Spanberger? I don't know who she is. And they convince them, or they make it so easy for them to do. They're like, okay, why not? So how do we do that?
Right. I mean, I think that's a great question.
Go on, Lydia. Sorry.
No, I just think I am a hairstylist. Okay. I am in the salon multiple days a week. I have a lot of people in and out of my chair. They know where I stand politically. I think you have to live under a rock to not know where I stand politically. And so I'm having a lot of conversations with people regularly, people that don't agree with me, that are on the other side, or people that are pretty moderate. And I am seeing a lot of just the personality thing. It doesn't seem to be facts or what these candidates can deliver. It seems to be a lot of personalities that people are drawn to, and not even what people stand for.
And that's based on, in my opinion, media. That's based
Absolutely.
on 100% media. That the TikToks, I don't like this. They've seen enough media and they're forming an opinion, and now they don't even have to think about the facts anymore. Because then hey, most of the people I know don't like so and so, so it makes it easy for me to not like them too.
Exactly.
What do you think, Terry?
No, it's Mean Girls, right? I mean, that's what the media is. Like they let everyone know who's allowed to be at the lunch table, who's in the in club, and who's not allowed, right? And I mean, like the line keeps getting further and further away from normalcy. And that's what's so crazy to me is like, how is it that AOC and Elon Omar, how are they in the in club? Like, how are they acceptable for ABC, but like Mike Johnson isn't, right? Like Donald Trump isn't. Like, these are actually pretty normal Americans. Like Donald Trump's just a New Yorker. That's it. He's just you. If you know anyone from New York, Donald Trump's pretty similar in terms of demeanor and how he talks and how he treats people. Give you the shirt off his back. Will take care if you really need help. But like, if you talk trash to him, he will talk trash twice as hard back. Like, that's kind of justice in a lot of ways. But no, the media is a real problem in this country. You know, the BBC just had a major penalty. Trump's suing them for $1 billion because they deceptively edited his speech on January 6th, 2021. They made it sound like they took one part of the speech from the 10-minute mark and they merged it with the end of the speech at like the 57-minute mark. It was almost an hour apart, and it made it sound like he was telling everyone to go to the Capitol and knock down the doors and blow everything up. But the media is so evil. They lie. But ultimately, they're just the mean girls in high school. They're the cliquey girls who don't want anyone else to infringe on their territory. They love the Democratic Party. And honestly, it's pathetic because they should be getting a lot more out of the Democratic Party than they're getting with all of the sycophantry that they're giving them.
And they need to be held accountable too, because a lot of this stuff is criminal. I mean, the way they can mold society's mind on somebody and not even give all the facts, and like you said, even edit a speech, that should be criminal.
And I don't want to we're drawing near to the end, and I don't want to get specific about some internal like things going on among the right, like squabbles that we see because we're all on social media a lot. My personal message is just stop it, please. Just stop it, because we missed opportunity. I think Jack Posobiec said it best. He was talking about himself. Well, I am in Virginia, or I'm in New Jersey, while Scott Pressler's out trying to collect ballots. While a lot of us are talking nonstop, hey, this is what's going on in New Jersey, this is what's going on in Virginia, this is what's going on in New York. There were too many in the influence sphere that were talking about just crazy stuff. And they should have been focused on the things that matter. So I think it's really important. We're talking a lot about the influence of media and how we have to overcome these huge obstacles with the legacy media. And we've already don't have enough money for messaging. So it's dependent on us to break through and get to people and tell them the truth, that we've got to be focused and unified as conservatives. We don't all have to agree, but just unified in the fact that let's not get distracted by, kind of the Jerry Springer type squabbles, and let's really be focused on what matters. And that's what I have to say about it, because I'm really sick. I'm sick of it. I have kids, and I just don't want to see these, like, this infighting and this sort of drama going on that's sort of tabloidish.
I agree with that. I think we can all grow up and be mature and keep it about the facts and the things that matter and the things that affect our families and our children. And so at the end of the day, that's what truly matters. And as conservatives, we should be able to disagree with each other and it not hit a whole different level of drama. It's silly when there's such bigger issues at play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We just need to, like I said earlier, message discipline. What are we doing to help middle class families? What are we doing to help working class families? What are we doing to fight against the left's attempts to destroy our children and their souls? Like that's what's at stake here, and that's what we need to be focusing on. What are we going to do to lower housing prices? What are we going to do to get my sons out of the basement, right, and married and having kids and grown up? Though we need to appeal to those voters that have kids in their basement that are still living there and aren't married. If we can do that, we're going to win a lot more. But all these stupid, I like how you said it. When you say Jerry Springer episodes, like that's exactly right. This is Jerry Springer. It's not helpful. Let's get back and let's focus. Let's move on and let's get the job done. The American people count on us. We're either going to lose our country or not. Right? We are on the verge of losing our country. If the Democrats get back in there, they are going to bust the filibuster. They're going to put 13 justices on the Supreme Court. They're
Yep.
going to get rid of all voter identification all across the country. They're going to open up the borders again. They're going to raise our taxes. They're going to shut down private schools, right? No one talks about that, but they hate the private schools because it means that they can't control at least a quarter of America's children in their minds. What they have planned for us is so bad. All of this stuff is enraging to know that there's a good portion of the conservative movement that's hell-bent on starting a civil war on our side. When's the Civil War ever worked out? It's never worked out. It's always bloody, it's always devastating, and it usually means everyone loses. And so we just need to be united, stop with the Jerry Springer episodes, and just move on and save our country.
I agree. Message discipline. Message discipline.
Yes.
And Lydia, what are your final words to not just to Virginians, but to all Americans who might be feeling like, I voted for Trump in 2024, but I'm still like feeling the economic pain. My kids are still stuck in a bad school, and I'm confused and wondering, like, what do I do? How can I make a change?
Yeah, I would say right now, though, with Trump, trust what he's doing. I mean, we've seen what he's done before. He's doing his best. And I think that not right now, but soon we will start at the grocery store seeing prices come down. I really do. I think that he's doing the best he can. And if we can just trust the process and trust him, we will shortly see that he can deliver. And so really that's my biggest encouragement to people is just trust him, trust the process. And then moving forward with the elections, we have got to find a way to get more people to show up at the polls. And so that's really my biggest message here is just show up, encourage your friends to vote, and fight what's important, which is stuff like this.
Yeah. Terry, your message.
We just got to work as hard as we can. There's I was at the Conservative Partnership Institute yesterday, and they have this amazing painting of George Washington at the Battle of Valley Forge, and it has these Revolutionary War soldiers without shoes on, without their boots, with no socks. Right, they're barefoot in the cold. This country was not founded by weak men. It was not founded by cowardly men. It was founded by brave people who are willing to ultimately, like, we say this, it's a cliche, to give up their lives for the next generation. Think about what that means. I mean, a lot of our people aren't actually even willing to like give up their job for the next generation. And we shouldn't get to that point, but we have to enter into a sacrificial mindset where we're willing to give up everything we have so that the next generation can be free, because that's what we inherited. The people that got us here are the people that died for us. And it's Veterans Day. I don't think that should be lost on anyone, but we got to do message discipline. We got to put our shoulder to the wheel. We got to be willing to throw the long ball and to sacrifice, because if we're not willing to sacrifice, the left is. I mean, the left is willing to sacrifice a lot. I mean, look at their hair, look at their looks. I mean, just the looks alone tell you everything. They are willing to die for their causes, and we have to be twice as willing to die for our causes.
I heard recently someone say this about what's going on in New York City, and they said they actually believe in their religion, and I think it's something that we have to take, like, they actually believe in what they're saying. They believe in their religion, and their politics is their religion, and this ideology is their religion. So we need to believe in what we're doing. We need to, I would say, trust in God, trust in our families, trust in truth, and stand firm on that. Don't question that. And when you look around and you think things aren't yet the way that I'd hope they would be, I think, especially, I'm a conservative. I believe in the power of the individual. I would say, look at yourself, think, what can I do to make a change? Don't look at what someone else can do for you. What can I do? How can I help facilitate change? What could I do to make my school district better? Even in the smallest ways, even if it's, there's things you don't like in your school library, volunteer to like, go to the school and volunteer to be, we're always needing teachers, and it's not that hard to be a substitute teacher. And so just go in there and then try to make that small change. Volunteer in your local library and volunteer to read books. Donate books that are good to your local library. Just anything that you can do. It doesn't even have to be political. Just find a way to be a force for good in your community and make a change, and you will feel so much better. You will feel different. You won't think, oh, like, and turn off the news sometimes. Don't look at social media, and touch grass, be with your family, and just and then you'll feel better. You will feel better. You won't feel all this doom and gloom. So I think that we need to, my admonishment on the right is stop being, don't always be so doom and gloom. There are good things. There are good things happening. There are good people, and there are good statistics. There's good things that we can point to. We don't always have to be negative, but we do have to tell the truth. So finding some balance and message discipline, what Terry said, 100%, we've got to be disciplined. I don't know. That's just coming from a mom, coming from my heart.
I love that. That was awesome.
That was great.
Mm-hmm.
And stop being
Touch
like
grass.
Springer. Turns out we're not the Jerry Springer. We're not Oprah. We're not like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. Nor are we Jerry Springer, though. We're not that either.
Right.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on and talking about these subjects. And it's hard. We said some things that are hard. We might be stepping on some toes, but it's like when you go to church, it's not a good service if you go there and you hear everything that you want to hear, right?
Yeah.
It's a good service. You have a good pastor when he tells you the things that are difficult and the things that you might have to change. And you're like, oh, I really, that vice is one I really kind of like a little bit, but I got to give that up. That's coming in the way between me and my relationship with God, or me and my relationship with my family or my spouse. So sometimes you have to hear these things, because it will, in the end, lead to something better.
I love it.
So, all right, guys, thank you so
Scarlett.
much. And I will wrap up at the end and make sure everyone knows where to follow these two amazing people. So thanks. Have a great day. Enjoy. It's cold here in Wisconsin. I hope it's nicer in Virginia. It's
hot.
cold. I'm wearing, look at this, like, it's like 34 degrees. So
It's
cold.
pretty chilly here.
It's cold.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bye,
Love
guys.
you, Scarlett. Bye.
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 Thank you, Lydia Schaffer and Terry Schilling, for this grounded conversation. We've been honest about what we've lost, and we've been honest about some of our opinions on how we can move forward, clear about where to go next. To our listeners, the story in Virginia is not one of defeat, but of learning and renewal. The next local school board races, the next state races, the next governor's races, the next congressional races, Senate races in 2026. These are very important, and we have to learn lessons. If we don't learn from the past, we are doomed to repeat it. We need to continue our focus on Title IX, parental rights, and the ideological insanity that's happening in schools. Perhaps we should reinvigorate our focus on teachers' unions, the corruption, and the sort of the financial side of what's happening in education and how that's affecting people. We also heard from Terry that we really need to focus on the economy and how people are feeling. And I've been saying this for a while. We've got to focus on the issues that everybody can relate to in just a different way. If we want to do what we did in 2024, we want to do it again, but we need to do it when Trump isn't on the ticket. So I think that we have to talk about the economy. We have to talk about how people, their perception of the economy. We have to talk about the fact that mortgage rates are high, and that affects the ability of families to move, to sell their house. That will affect the choice of whether or not to have children. And we definitely want people getting married and having lots of kids and all of that. You know, everything that Charlie Kirk said is still true. Get married young, have babies, pursue a life of meaning. That's what's important. So how do we facilitate that? This is our next frontier. And as joyful warriors, we need to be an inspiration. We need to continue to be an inspiration where we talk about the serious issues, but we do so in a way that isn't all doom and gloom, because it's not. It's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot to look forward to, but we can't lose our country. We can't lose our way, and we can't stop fighting for what's right. We can't stop fighting for our families. So we need to stand up locally and stay plugged in to the Moms for Liberty network. We need to have some national momentum. It's really important. It's really important that we don't lose hope. We can't lose hope. And when you're feeling discouraged, just like I said, tune everything out except for your family. Turn off the news, put your phone down, and just focus on the things that matters. Be with your friends, be with your family, and remember, tomorrow is another day. Go to the AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. Right here, you can see they have all their information on the website. And then follow Terry on social media. He's very active on X. And his organization is doing a lot to help fight. Like this says, the American Principles Project is the premier national organization engaging directly in campaigns and advocacy on the behalf of the family. And they really are. So make sure that you check them out. And I am so grateful for Lydia Schaffer and to hear, she posts so many great things on Instagram. And I'm so grateful to Lydia Schaffer for joining us. You can follow her on Instagram at Conservative Barbie 2.0. So you can see right here. And she has got an amazing Instagram page. She is funny, thoughtful, insightful. She is an ambassador for Turning Point USA. And she is amazing. And I want to say thank you to Lydia Schaffer. She is an ambassador for Turning Point USA. And she has an amazing Instagram account, Conservative Barbie 2.0. She's been on before. I will have her on many times again because I love her and she is super fun to talk to and she's very insightful. So thank you, Lydia, for coming on the show again, and can't wait to have you back on to discuss all things conservative through the lens of moms